Hey everybody, welcome to the Outsiders Fantasy Podcast where anything goes. My name is John. This is my partner Drew. As you see on screen, our nicknames, I'm Johnny Titles because I'm the four-time reigning defending undisputed champion of the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. And my man over here, Drew Schefter, because he is on top of the sports information side of everything, whether it be football, hockey, golf, basketball, baseball, badminton, table tennis, cricket, granny shots in the driveway with the free throws. My man here has all the information down to the last detail. Drew, what you drinking on today?
Samuel Adams, Sam 76. I don't know if you can
Does
see
it,
that.
for the people at home, does it taste like freedom?
Yeah, it does. It's
Okay.
pretty smooth. Got a kind of a citrus taste, but it's really smooth. Pretty good.
Nice, nice. For those of you that don't get it, 1776 is the year we obtained our freedom. So just had to throw that out there. All right. So today's episode, short, sweet, simple. We are going to give you some tips and tricks on how to draft, specifically season long. So there's two types for those that you don't know, or if you don't know much about fantasy football and you just need advice in general. If you already know this, just ignore me. Not speaking to you like you're dumb. Just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. There's two types of fantasy football. There's what's called daily fantasy, which is usually played for money, and every weekend is a different type of draft. So you get a new team essentially every weekend, and the best lineup wins. Whereas season long is you get with your buddies or random strangers or whatever. You all come together for a draft, and those players you draft you keep for the entire season, unless you trade them or drop them or pick them up other players or whatever. That's what we're going to be talking about today as far as drafting. How to draft for season long, because it's a little bit different strategy. Inside of that, there are two different types of season long scoring systems. There's standard, and then there's PPR, which stands for points per reception. I have played in leagues where PPR has stood for points per rush attempt. So it just, you have to be specific. If you're not sure, ask your commissioner or ask somebody that's played in the league before. So that tells you how to draft, and you'll know why the more we go into this. So starting off with in my opinion, granted it's just an opinion, the easiest scoring system to draft for is standard, to me. And what that means is usually a standard scoring system is for every 10 yards gained, whether it be receiving yards or this just for running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. For every 10 yards gained, whether it be running with the ball or catching, you get a point. Quarterbacks usually 25 yards a pass, you get a point. And then the other ways you get points are some leagues have big play bonuses like 40 yards or more touchdown reception. You might get an extra 3 points or something. But if it's just straight standard scoring, it's 10 points, or I mean, it's 10 yards equal a point for running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, whether it be receiving or rushing. And then quarterbacks is 1 point for every 25 yards. And then touchdowns are usually 6 points for skill players, non-quarterbacks. And then quarterbacks, some leagues I've seen 6 points, but usually it's 4 points for quarterbacks because it is a passing league and passing is a little bit easier nowadays. So for some reason, default in some apps are for 4 points for the quarterback touchdowns. But if they run it in, it's 6 points because it's the rushing touchdown. Anyway, now that we got all that out of the way, so the focus for that obviously is you just want consistency. Consistency is key in standard scoring leagues. You want to make sure that you're drafting wide receivers that can get you 80 and a touchdown a game at least, or if they're not going to get you a touchdown, make sure they get enough volume to where they can at least get you 100 yards so you can get 10 points. Same thing with tight ends. Consistency is just very key, and touchdowns are key. So big play people like Tyreek Hill would be someone I would first target because anytime he touches the ball, it could go instantly 60 yards and a touchdown, and right then you got 12 points right off the bat just from one catch. Drew, any running backs or anything you would draft necessarily in the first round based on this method of consistency or big play?
I find that Zeke, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon, they all pretty much they give you big plays a lot of times. Moving to a different position though, usually in standard, I find that quarterbacks usually dominate in points just because
That's true.
they get the most yards. They
Mm-hmm.
every time somebody scores, it's usually from them. Most of the time, unless it's a running back. But
Mm-hmm.
usually the quarterbacks usually dominate the draft in the standard, I believe, or for me personally, anyways. But as far as running backs go, definitely McCaffrey, Saquon, Zeke. Those are your main guys.
That's a good point with the quarterbacks, especially now when the age of the quarterback that improvises or quote unquote scrambles like Lamar Jackson or
Yeah,
Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes, because not only are they giving you 400 or 500 yards or 350 a game passing plus the touchdowns, but Lamar can get you 100 on the ground. Patty can get you 25, 40, 50, something like that. Russell Wilson's been known to scramble for 100, maybe, I believe, or a good amount.
yeah,
Anything helps. So, yeah, you're definitely right. Especially if you have those big play bonuses and they're built into your league. Quarterbacks definitely are super, super important. Me personally, I like the skill positions a little bit more, just because there's so many good big play hitter. There's not so many, but there are. But people take those guys so much faster than they take QBs. So it's almost as soon as the draft starts, it's a race to get those guys, those Tyreek Hills, those Zekes, those Derrick Henrys, those Dalvin Cooks, Christian McCaffreys, those, just freaks of nature. And then once people calm down, then it's okay, now let's worry about a quarterback and stuff. So
yeah.
that's why I tend to go more with skilled players. So.
And I mean, quarterbacks usually in standard dominate as far as points wise, but they're so to me they're so replaceable at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you can. I mean, there's 32 teams in. They're all going to throw at least 20 to 30 times a game. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get points. So I mean, if you don't get Lamar, you don't get Pat, you don't get Dak or Tom. I mean, there's plenty more out there that you can go and get and be
Yeah.
just as productive.
Yeah, and everything is. I mean, you can look at it as in a tier. I mean, obviously, as far as scoring wise, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, they're going to be in a tier of their own where they could get you 50 points on any given day just because they're insane. Um, but those are rare players that if you're fortunate enough to time right and get and still have a really good team without sacrificing, other skill positions, then, best of luck to you. You won pretty much. But in the quarterbacks, like you said, it is they're almost kind of exchangeable, in a way, as far as in the tiers, because let's say, other than Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, who's like a top tier quarterback, and like, let's say, Aaron Rodgers. He can get you really good games. He's super accurate, lots of touchdowns, passing offense, things like that. The difference in him and, let's say, a next tier down guy like Kirk Cousins, I mean, the point differential is maybe like 3 to 5 on average. It's not, and that's maybe reaching, in my opinion. Granted, Aaron Rodgers can give you 30 and 35-point games. So can Kirk Cousins. But I mean, really, you're not sacrificing much by interchanging them. So, but the differential between Tyreek Hill and then, like, a wide receiver too is pretty substantial as far as the ceiling that could happen, in my opinion. So, yeah. As far as the strategy that I have to pick in a standard draft, I'll go over mine, and Drew we'll go over his with you as well, so you can get two aspects to it. Usually what I do is, in standard, since wide receivers and running backs, they both, as far as the way they get you points, are about the same way. I focus more not on the position, but of playmaking ability. So the big playmakers are the ones that I'm going to target first, the home run hitter, your Tyreek Hills, your Julio Jones, your Christian McCaffreys, the people that have a chance to have a touchdown every time they touch the ball. Even Derrick Henry with his 95-yard touchdown runs and stuff like that. Those are the guys that I'm going to target first. Big play guys, and also consistent guys. If I can get someone that's either super consistent or super explosive and big play, or if I'm the number one pick, I can get the person that identifies with both. That's what I'm going to go for. And then once that's settled, I try to do an even type of draft. So I always make sure that I don't load up so much on running backs that when it comes time to pick receiver, I have all these high tier 1 running backs, but I have these like tier 3, like Valdez Scantling and let's see, John Brown and people like that, because that doesn't help anything. It's good to spread the wealth and make sure everything's equaled out in standard scoring, in my opinion. So whatever I draft first, whether it be a running back, I try to draft something, unless there's a situation that arises where someone makes a goof and doesn't pick up another, like, let's say I get Saquon Barkley as my first pick, or Christian McCaffrey as my first pick, is this year usually for everybody. And let's say for some reason nobody picks Saquon Barkley. Of course I'm going to get Saquon Barkley in the second round if no one picks him up. To sacrifice a little bit on the receiver end, I'm fine with that, because I have 2 cornerstone running backs as my 1 and 2. But ideally, that's not going to happen. So I would pick my first either really consistent or home run hitter, or both, depending on your draft position. And then with my next pick, I do the same thing with the opposite position, so wide receiver, just to make sure that I'm set up. I have a good wide receiver one, a good running back one, and then in rounds 3 and 4, I do the same thing. I get another running back or wide receiver, and then another running back or wide receiver. So I make sure I fill up my running backs and wide receiver, my skill positions first, because those are the ones that are going to score me, in my opinion, the most points all together, because they're a unit of 4. And if they're all of decent consistency, if you can get a good combination of consistency with big play, it's a really powerful combination. And then usually around 5 and 6, rounds 5 and 6, that's when I start looking for a quarterback and a tight end. Because you don't need Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson to win your leagues if you pick smart. Granted, if you do have them, you can win your leagues, but as of right now, their hype is so big. The places you see them picked in are round 1 and round 2, and you know that's fine if that's what you want to do. But you just left me Saquon, maybe potentially. You just left me Zeke or Derrick Henry or Julio Jones in the second round for some reason, because you took him and that slid Julio, so that's why I always wait for around at least round 5 or 6. I pick a middle tier. I have like a fail safe where I'll pick a tier of quarterbacks that once they start going, then I start to look at the quarterbacks. And then once a certain one gets picked, it'll trigger me to pick a quarterback one. So usually I'll let the Aaron Rodgers, the Lamars, the Mahomes, I'll let them get drafted because I don't need them to win championships. It's great to have them, but I don't need them to win championships. But when you start seeing Kirk Cousins, when you start seeing Josh Allen, those people start going off the board, Drew Brees, when they start leaving, then it's starting to get time to get your QB1 in there, because you want your guy to get you at least 20 a game. That's a fair number, I think, to have out of your quarterback. If he doesn't get you at least 20, you need to find a quarterback that can get you at least 20, because you're not winning unless your skill guys are unreal and you have a really good tight end. You're not winning games if your quarterback's not averaging you at least 20 points a game. So I have a little fail safe. So if for some reason people are going quarterback crazy in round 3 and someone takes Kirk Cousins, I mean, after all the other top tier quarterbacks have already been taken, like, I'm going to have to force my hand and switch my strategy up, take a quarterback, but then the next round, let's get back on track. Let's get back to the running back, wide receiver, making them equal thing. And then once I get my quarterback, I'll go for my tight end, and then defense, of course. And then I always save my kicker for last, because you can stream them week to week based on matchups. So in order of importance, we'll go over again: running back, wide receiver till they're filled up, and then quarterback, unless your fail safe gets triggered, then you get back on track. Then tight end, and then you get your defense set. And then after that, you start filling in the holes where you need them. You start that's where you start handcuffing your running backs if you believe in handcuffing. So like if you drafted Zeke, you'd be getting Tony Pollard. So in case Zeke gets hurt or suspended or whatever, you still got a piece of the Chiefs or the Cowboys backfield. I'm sorry, that was dumb. Or just nice compliments. And nice matchups that you can work into your starting lineup every week. just however you see fit. Also, a big thing after you get your starting lineup filled and you're starting to fill your bench up, pay attention to your bye weeks. Make sure that, I mean, it's impossible to not run into situations where a lot of your players are going to be out on the same weeks. That's just inevitable. But what you want to do is try to reduce that as much as possible. So pay attention to your bye weeks, even if that means you might have to get a slightly less talented player, just so you can have someone to fill that spot on that bye week. Just remember, any points is better than 0 points on any given week, hands down. So sometimes you got to make sacrifices. Just hope that the first tight end you picked is the one that you're going to be playing the entire season, and the only reason you need that other one is for the bye week. So and you'll be good to go. And once you start filling in those gaps, make sure your guys have their backups in place. Make sure the backups, at least for your quarterback, your tight end, your at least make sure that they're starters in their own rights for their own teams. You don't want your number twos being backups on their teams, because if you need them during a bye week, they may not play. I know that might sound obvious, but I say backup and QB2. I use them interchangeably. I probably shouldn't, because it's kind of confusing sometimes, but yeah. And then once everything's rounded out and you feel comfortable with everything, and then you just go pick a kicker that you feel has the best week 1 matchup. And what I do is I just string kickers. So every week I look at how the offenses are doing for the kickers that are on the waiver. I look at the defense that the team's playing, try to figure out, project, I guess, or guess is the best word. That's all we really can do, is just guess how close that offense is going to be able to get, and how many times they're going to be able to get on the plus side of the field, so the kicker can have an opportunity to kick the ball. And then at that point, how accurate is he? How strong is his leg? So a lot of things to think about. But that's something that, that's just for week 1, because every week, like I said, I recommend streaming kickers. Just take the matchups. You don't have to waste your time with kickers. Granted, sometimes people like Justin Tucker will get you 20 points a game one season, and he's a game changer, but those are few and far between. So, but anyways, yeah, a little long-winded, but that's my strategy on standard. So, Drew, what do you got for him?
Actually, I mean, we're pretty similar. I like to get the big-time playmakers, top-tier running back, receivers. Where I think we start to differ, if I can get, top-tier running back first, or receiver, whichever. I watch the board, but whichever I can get, if I can get 2 top-tier running backs and a top-tier receiver, sometimes, not always, I kind of like watch everybody else. But my 4th round, I might sneak a quarterback in there, just to, now that I got 3 top-tier players already, I might sneak a Patrick Mahomes in there early, if he's there, or Lamar or something like that, because I can still get a pretty decent receiver 2 or running back 2. And then as far as like after that, I go back to the normal, strategy, try to balance everything out. And then my as far as quarterback wise, like I said earlier, they're a dime a dozen when it's in fantasy. Pretty much either league, like standard or PPR. But if you can, like I said, sneak a Patrick Mahomes in, or a Lamar, or somebody that pretty much know. I mean, there's no guarantee in anything, but your chances are good with Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson, the top name guys. But if I do sneak that in, I go straight back to my strategy, trying to get as good a running back or receiver as I can, and then in the later rounds, that's when I go to my tight ends. Usually, I've seen lately, anyways. Kelsey and Kittle, some people kind of jump the gun on the tight ends.
Like the second round and stuff. I think yesterday Travis Kelsey went in like the second round or something.
Yeah, and but tight ends. I mean, there's a few good ones, and then the rest are just kind of. I mean, they're just kind of your 10 to 15 point guys, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. They're not the big time players like the running backs and receivers or quarterbacks even. So I kind of I don't if Kelsey and Kittle fly off the board, it doesn't bother me. I mean, there's plenty of other guys that are going to get you 8, 10, 12 points. Kelsey and Kittle, they're in a league of their own, and they're the main targets mainly for their teams besides Tyreek Hill. But and then as far as defense goes, normally I wait till I feel my tight ends, quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs because I've noticed a lot, even in our league, it seems like people kind of watch matchups too, and they almost do them like the kickers, like you were talking about streaming kickers. It's like they'll drop them this week based on matchup. So I don't know. Sometimes you have to take a chance on it and just roll with what you got, but sometimes it's good to stream based on matchups too. Just it all depends on personal preference, really. But I like to stick to my guns. Like I think last night I got the Saints defense or Saints, and I love the Saints defense. Their front's really good. They cause a lot of havoc, which creates more turnovers. Kickers, I'm kind of the same way. It's week to week, and kickers are a dime a dozen in the NFL. They might sign them on Monday and cut them on Thursday. Like you never know. So kickers is just another one. That's just if there's somebody there that has a name, get them, and then then you just kind of go from there, how they're doing each week, and based on the team that they're playing, the defense. If you think that defense is going to slow their offense down, and they're not going to score a lot of touchdowns, that might be the guy you want that week. If you think that they're just going to run the score up, he's going to get you some points, but it might not be as much as a different matchup.
Yeah, it'll be those 1 points instead of, usually in leagues, if it's a 30 yards or more or 30 yards or less, it's 3 points for a field goal. 40 yards is 4 points. 50 yards is 5 points. And then extra points are 1. So what you want is when you pick a kicker, you want to pick a kicker on a team that has an offense that's good so they can drive the ball down the field, but you want the team they're playing against to have a defense just good enough to where they don't let them score, but they get into good enough range, like a 40-yard, 50-yard range that your kicker can hit so you can max out those points when he hits those field goals. But it also tears at your heartstrings because sometimes the offenses that your kickers play for are the ones that you drafted their players. So, of course, you want touchdowns every score. So it's a little give and take.
Yeah, and kickers, I mean, kickers, like, honestly, I wish they were, personal opinion, I wish they were part of defense special teams and you could add another flex or just another player because even extra points, they're not gimmies anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had kickers lose me the week because of extra points. I mean, it's just it's kickers is like a hate and love relationship.
Yeah. I definitely agree with. I think that would be an interesting thing to find a league or make a league or something like that
Yeah,
where the kicker, like the defense, special teams gets the points on the just from what the kicker does too. I think that would make picking defense way more of a priority too, and it would
yeah.
add it would change the dynamic in the draft
It would
process.
change a lot of draft strategies, I think.
Yeah, because usually defenses and kickers are two of the least cared about things when you're picking in the draft. I mean, hell, you try to fill your bench up usually before you go for a defense. Sometimes, unless there's like one of those really good high scoring defenses out there. I saw uh, like the 49ers go at 87 or something one time, which is ridiculously high. They must be expecting a lot of turnovers and sacks. But on to the other side, the side that we play, PPR, the points per reception. So this is focused on pass catching. The other version would be points per rush. We've done it before. Wasn't as fun as points per reception. It's a little bit more lopsided when it's points per rush because since it is a passing league, really only a few teams, like if you're Zeke or Derrick Henry, really get that extra point. It's kind of lost. It basically turns into standard scoring really quick. So we found points per reception PPR version a little bit better, a little bit more entertaining, and in my opinion, a little bit more true to life. As far as when you're looking at their statistics, their targets, all that stuff. PPR is my favorite type of scoring system, hands down. And that brings a whole new dynamic in drafting when it comes to PPR as far as being points per reception. Because who becomes king in the PPR leagues? The people that catch the football, because you get a point no matter what. You get a point if they catch the ball. So there's 1 point done for you. And then if they get 10 yards, there's another point there. If they get a touchdown, you got 8 points already. So it's fantastic. So the position that's the most important to me in the PPR scoring format would be not the you'd think it'd be the wide receivers because when you think catching, you think wide receiver, but it's actually the dual threat running back that has started to emerge here in the past few years. Your Dalvin Cooks, your Christian McCaffreys, your Saquon Barkleys, your Joe Mixons, Tony Pollard, even though he's a backup, he's a very good PPR back. Probably what I'm hoping Cam Akers will be this year, Kareem Hunt, those types of running backs that are heavily involved in the passing game, or slightly more than average involved in the passing game. That way you get all the fantastic things that the running backs bring, the points per 10 yards a rush, the 6 point touchdowns, but then they also are catching passes and getting points and yards and touchdowns that way as well. So it makes them supreme, in my opinion, because not all wide receivers, rare few wide receivers rush the ball, but a very high percentage of running backs catch the ball nowadays. And just that extra point makes a difference. If they get 3 targets a game or 5 targets a game and they catch 3 balls or something like that, or 2 balls, I mean, those 2 points go a long way. So that would be my focus in the first and second rounds, just getting as the best 2 PPR backs that you can find. Then once you get into round 3, see what's out there as far as running backs and receivers, but still focus on running backs and focus on the pass catching positions. If you have a better running back out there in your third round, then and you feel like the receivers out there you can get in later rounds, for sure, just grab the running back. And there's a way more wide receivers in the NFL than there are running backs. So you can never go wrong taking too many running backs. Eventually, you can use them as trade bait or whatever, because they do get hurt easily. So people and bye weeks. So usually around week 6 or 7 in the NFL, people get hurting for running backs. So the more you have, the more advantage you have, number one, in scoring, and number two, in trade leverage to get the players that you want to round your team out where you may have failed in the draft. Then on top of that, so after your running backs are good and filled, I would move on to the wide receivers again. Highly targeted wide receivers. This is where you need to do your research. The receivers that get targeted the most, so they have the most opportunities to catch the passes. Obviously, it's just simple logic. Michael Thomas set the NFL record in receptions. I don't know how many he had. It was over 100 or something, right, Drew?
Yeah, it was around. I think it was close to 140 or maybe an over 140. I don't know.
Something like
Insane.
that. So
Insane.
so let's say it's 140. So in a PPR league, literally he scored 140 points alone for you just catching the football. That's not to count the yards, because he had over 1,000 yards. And that's not counting the touchdowns either. So just 140 points just for catching the ball. Now you see the importance. So wide receivers definitely come next. You want the heavily targeted ones like Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, the number ones on the team, the OBJs, the Tyreek Hills.
Just for reference, he had 149 receptions, 1,725 yards, and 9 touchdowns.
So that's like 149 receptions, you said?
Yeah,
so
that was NFL record.
149 plus 170 something for his yards, 170 points for his yards, and then 6 times however many touchdowns is his points for his touchdowns. So he went absolutely insane last year, and 140 of those points were just because he caught the damn ball. So yes, PPR, I love it. It makes it more true to life for me too, because the number one receivers usually get targeted the most. So
that's 364 points.
Wow. It's a heck of a lot of points for a single season. So you're wanting to get as many what I call PPR backs, so dual threat backs, as possible in all the rounds. Your first 4 rounds, 5 rounds, if they're good, top tier quality PPR backs like Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey and Zeke, I would still consider, because he does catch some passes, but even though he's mostly a running back, but he's just so good. Players like that, just keep trying to get as many of those PPR backs as possible, and then once those are exhausted, keep just trying to get the best true running backs possible. And then when you're good on running backs, I'd say I would at least get 4. Make sure you have 4 running backs. Depends on how many teams you have in your league and how many bench spots, but around 4 or 5 is usually the magic number, because running backs do get hit a lot. They get hit hard. They get hit by big men, so they get hurt a lot. So you need a lot of rotation to go around, and then also the bye weeks. And so the way you also use that to your advantage, number one, you're defending yourself from never having to have an empty roster spot. You never want a 0 on any of your roster locations. So having 4 or 5 running backs ensures that. But also it ensures if someone else's running backs get hurt, or they get on bye weeks, you have trade capital. So if you spent all this time building up your running backs, you might have missed out on on like a Cortland Sutton or a DJ Moore or a Cooper Cup or something like that. Here's your chance to get one, because you can. Hey, I see you got a couple of running backs hurt, or one of your big ones hurt. I'll trade you one. I got plenty. Just let me get Cooper Cup from you. I'm kind of light on wide receiver, and there you go. You just upped his running back game, helped him out, and he just upped your wide receiver game. A win-win situation. Perfect, as it should be. Yeah, and then play that game, and then again, just like in standard, around round 6-ish, I start looking for quarterbacks. This year, quarterbacks went really, really slow. So even in round 6, I wouldn't even have them to look for a quarterback. But in the past, usually round 6 is when it starts picking up. Again, look for the fail safes, like we talked about. If you're whatever your fail safe QB is, once he gets triggered, draft your quarterback, then get back on track. Then go for your tight ends, and then after you get your quarterback and your tight end, it basically becomes the same process as standard. You're going to try to just make sure everything's evened out as far as consistency and being explosive. And then, as always, your last pick is your kicker. So, and I'll let Drew share his strategy.
Running backs, and then running backs. But yeah, we're pretty similar again on that, and I guess that's probably why we're pretty. You are the defending champ for sure.
I mean, you beat me every regular season, so like I think we literally go 1-1 against each other every year.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, pretty similar. I like definitely like running backs, and I definitely try to at least get 2 top tier ones before I even think receiver. But again, I watch the board. If I get 2 running backs and receivers start flying, then I need to get at least 1 receiver, and then try to go back to my strategy. Yeah, that's the main thing for me is just I always watch the board. I don't want to reach. I don't like reaching, but sometimes they don't give you an option, depending on who's in your league and how they drafted. Not everybody agrees with the strategy of running back first and receivers. I think was it last night somebody took a quarterback in the second round of our draft.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and then
then Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and then immediately, like right after that, Pat flew off the board.
Yeah,
but I mean, still, I don't panic when they start flying off the board, quarterbacks, anyways, because like we said before, even in standard, I mean they're a dime a dozen. They're all going to throw 20 to 30 times a game. They're not all going to get the yards that the other one is, but they're pretty consistent across the board as far as your points. And yeah, and then later rounds, I even in this one I still go tight end before defense. Because I look when I go for tight ends, I look at what team likes to use their tight ends a lot.
Yeah,
especially in PPR.
Exactly.
Like San Francisco, Kansas City, even I don't know now that Gronk and Tom are both gone, but New England they always like to utilize their tight ends.
And on the flip side, Miami, their OC over there, who they have now, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's notoriously known for having his tight ends in a lot of run blocking. Even though Gesicki is a really good pass catching tight end, he's shown that last year and the year before that. He's just unfortunately teamed up with a coaching staff that doesn't have many plays drawn up for the tight end catching the ball. So,
Right.
yeah.
And even Aaron Rodgers, he loves throwing to the tight end. Even in Dallas in years past with Witten, he's gone to Vegas now. But Blake Jarwin is someone I like, which I'm a Cowboys fan, anyways. But he's shown that he can make big plays in when he's in the game, and Dak likes to throw. Dak likes the safe throw, and I like him taking the safe throw because I don't want us to turn it over. But yeah, I just on tight ends, especially in PPR, I just watch who uses the tight ends the most, and then defense and kickers to me it's basically the same. I like to watch the matchups and who gets the most turnovers, who gets the most sacks, And I like another thing we didn't talk about, another one as far as defense special teams. I look at kick returners like Miko Hardman, like
Yeah,
people
true.
like that.
Because
I like,
touchdown count.
yeah, I like to look at that as far as defense goes. It doesn't make me change my draft strategy or anything, but I do like to look at returners and kickers. You just week to week on this.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, and that's kind of what sealed the deal for me with picking Seattle for the defense. I mean, they got Bobby Wagner, they got Jamal Adams at safety, but you mentioned that to me, and I was thinking, who's Seattle's return man? Oh, usually Tyler Lockett. Oh, bet. Okay, touchdown. Like,
Yeah,
let's go. So that sealed the deal for me. And when you find those defenses that kind of just resonate with you, whether it be like a really notoriously turnover heavy defense, like maybe Buffalo or um, uh, the Rams have been in the past, or Saxonville with, you get points for sacks. So like teams that have an identity and that are consistent, yeah, you'll want to kind of pay more attention to them and maybe sacrifice a bench spot, like where you could have had a little bit better bench player to move up a little bit to get a defense that you will want to keep on most occasions. Um, but when we talk about stream defenses, that's after those are usually gone. Unless the defense, I'm certain, convinced, is gonna like be who they said that they're gonna be if they're gonna repeat, then I will go out of my way like a couple of rounds early to make sure that I get them. But usually it does end up biting me in the bench come bye week time. I definitely see a drop in my flex play and my flex output by a few points for sure. Been lucky enough to overcome it, but still, it's just kind of impulsive. And like Drew said, you just kind of have to wing it. You always have to watch the board. And as you'll see after this video, we're posting our actual draft that we had. And you'll see in that things went the complete opposite of the way we expected them to go. Well, not opposite. They went how we wanted it to go, just way faster than we wanted. We knew it was going to be running back, running back, running back, running back all the way until the PPR backs were done. But by the time the second round, third round hit, there were really no more real good PPR backs left, and it was just wide receiver game. So I got caught in the position of me. I just got done preaching to you guys, go for the running backs first. I couldn't. So I instead had to switch my game up. Instead of overloading on running back to have leverage for trade in the future, I made sure I loaded up on wide receiver so I could have that trade leverage in the future. It ended up working out for me. As far as I've eventually got everything stabilized. Some people pick people way too early, and that allowed me to get back in the game. Like a couple of quarterbacks went in the second round, a couple of tight ends went in the second and third round. So that allowed me to like right the ship and get back into it. So I was able to come back with a nice tier 1 QB and stuff like that. But as you'll see, there were a lot of curveballs that were thrown at Drew and I during the draft. One of them I got kind of upset about. So I apologize for what you hear in the back room. I'm a Florida State fan, so I get sensitive when my guys get taken from me. I really wanted Dalvin Cook as my first pick. He usually is the guy I target. Yeah, so to keep it rolling, so that's our strategies. If you have any strategies of your own, if you agree, if you disagree, you got something that we've never even thought of, we're always looking to get better. We're very teachable people. Just drop a comment and let us know what you think. If you agree with us, give us a like. If you don't agree with us, give us a like anyway. What the heck? We're cool people. Subscribe to the channel if you want to get some more tips and advice, because we will be doing this all season long, every season. But now we're going to move on to kind of the opinionated part, the sleepers, the underrated people, the overrated people, things like that. So, Drew,
The very overrated people.
So, Drew, if you want to segue us with that beautiful 1776, who are your overrated players of this year?
Mitchell Trubisky. He's overrated every year.
I agree.
I don't see what everyone else sees, but apparently Chicago loves him. Maybe that's why they're there and I'm on here doing this. But but yeah, I don't. He doesn't produce enough for me to make him a reliable quarterback at any point when there's so many other good ones out there. Another one that I really don't think is very good, or well, he's good. Don't get me wrong. I just think he's overrated. Is Carson Wentz?
Yes.
He's not. He's good at times. He's not consistent. He's injury prone. I think he's been injured at least 1 week of every year that he's played. And I think he missed almost half a season the year they went to the Super Bowl and won with Nick Foles. I don't know. He just, for me, he's not consistent enough, and I'm a Cowboys fan, so no, I'm just kidding. But
wrong with that.
But yeah, those are two for me. I'll let you share a few.
So a couple I got on my list. Well, I got I put 5. I tried to spread it out across the positions. So I got sleepers. Wait, were we doing sleepers or overrated?
Overrated.
My fault. Sorry about that. So I got Jimmy G. I feel like he's a bit overrated. He came in way over advertised, way overpaid. I felt like he showed that. Yes, he did play great, played consistent. He was a good, very great quarterback. But they built this dude up like the second coming of a quarterback that we've never had before, just because he played under Tom Brady and he won a couple of games when he started for the Pats. Like, I know there's other factors involved, but
didn't they pay him? Didn't they give him that was like $100 million or something before he even played a game for the 49ers?
Yeah, something like that. It was ridiculous. So in my opinion, he's very overrated. still a good player. Like, I'm not saying don't draft him. Jared Goff, golf, Jared Goff, another overrated quarterback in my opinion. In the Super Bowl that they lost, you saw the overratedness. He is great when he's having the plays called to him and before the mic cuts off in the helmet, the checks to look at and the reads to make and stuff like that. He's great in those situations. But when he's got to think on his feet, he showed that he struggles severely in those situations. Um, Another person, James Conner. Um, he's a really decent running back, but for some reason, I don't know. I just don't feel like he's first round capable. That's just not the output that he gives to me. I would rather get like Michael Thomas in the first round than James Conner or even DeAndre Hopkins than James Conner in the first round. That's in fact what I did. If once you see our draft video, another one, Leonard Fournette. I think he's on his last chance here in Tampa. I said it since he was drafted. He runs too high, and that causes a lot of contact. He's not safe with himself. Difference between him and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry definitely does drive through the ball and he's very physical and stuff, and he leans forward. But he knows at the point of contact, if it's all possible, he knows kind of how to give that little dead leg, that little shimmy, or let a little part of his body go limp, so he's not brunt on brunt, like just hitting people like a bowling ball. He'll let them make the contact in a softer way, and then he tries to break the tackle with his own raw power. Leonard Fournette is a very hard runner. He's a good player. He just can't stay healthy. So for that reason, he's overrated, not because of his lack of talent, but just because of the potential that he could be, but he keeps breaking his body down with his running style. So, do you got any others?
Um, I think we pretty much covered them.
Okay.
Um,
So, would you want to say something?
yeah, I do have one more actually. Daniel Jones.
Uh,
Why?
Cowboys in the house.
I will never in a million years understand why they drafted him where they drafted him.
You realize
Yeah,
you talk shit about Carson Wentz and Daniel Jones in the same podcast.
I do. But with that being said, no, I just I think he could be good, but I think he's another one they're hyping up. Like,
Yeah, they're wanting too much too soon from him.
yeah, they just kind of in his defense, they just like, all right, Eli, sit down, here you go, and just threw him
Yeah,
into the fire, and they're not they're not built for that. Like, he doesn't have enough around him for him to be the quarterback they want him to be. I think is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, for sure. I agree. It's one of those situations that is he's overrated, but it's not necessarily his fault that he's overrated.
And also, which again, they're not built for him to be the quarterback they want him to be. He led the league in fumbles, which could be his line, or he just could be holding the ball too long.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't, being a Cowboys fan, I don't really pay attention to the New York
to
whatever.
inferior teams.
Yeah, no, just kidding. But the New York want to be a football team, Giants. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I just don't. I think he could get there. I do, but I just don't see it right now.
Yeah, I feel you. All right, so let's go on to sleepers. So since you started first, I'll start first on this one.
Okay.
So for my sleepers, I got Cortland Sutton, the wide receiver for the Broncos. He made some noise last year, but I think he's got a lot more in him than you think he does. I don't think you saw anything but a scratch on the surface of what Cortland Sutton. For that matter, DJ Moore falls in that same category of sleeper wide receiver. Like you, to me, they're side by side comparison.
Yeah, I like more.
Yeah. As far as I'll hit the running back now. So I have one running back that I have for my sleeper. It's because he's a rookie, and he comes from the greatest university on the face of this earth, the Florida State University, home of the Seminoles, the most dominant team of all time, 2013 national champions who set the offensive scoring record. We'll just go ahead and put that here for the rest of the podcast. Cam Akers, ladies and gentlemen, the running back for the Los Angeles Rams. I almost said St. Louis. I was about to cut the podcast off right then. They traded Todd Gurley away for this man, for this man to be the standalone starter. Now, granted, I'm sure he's going to split carries at first, but this kid is going to be a starter big time. I've watched him since he was a freshman in college. This kid is like Dalvin Cook. He is fantastic. He's a PPR fanatic. I love him. Definitely a sleeper because not enough people are talking about him. That's why he's a sleeper. And then for my quarterbacks, I kind of have two in a tie because they're on their way out of their career as far as age-wise, and then one because of a rookie. So I got Joe Burrow is going to be a sleeper for me because obviously the whole debacle with his hand size, and if he's can he handle Cincinnati? Can he handle AJ Green? Not handling if AJ Green can be and decide if he wants to be in Cincinnati or not. But I think Joe Cool's gonna find a way to calm the flames, to make the plays, to trust in his teammates. Tyler Boyd's very underrated wide receiver. He's definitely helped carry that team when AJ's went down in the past. So if he can get that combination of Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon going, if AJ Green can have a decent health season this year, and catch a few touchdown passes himself, I think Joe Burrow will turn some heads. I'm not saying he's going to win Rookie of the Year or anything, but I think people are thinking he's going to do a lot worse than what he actually is.
And to add to that, he's got some talent around him. For once in Cincinnati, they have some pieces there. They've got Tyler, like you said, Tyler Boyd, AJ Green, John Ross. A lot of people forget about him. He's still there. Mixon. They got Joe Mixon in the backfield. Another one I like that they added, I think it was T. Higgins.
Yeah.
He's going to be, I think, not necessarily come in and be a star right off the bat, but I think he's a great player that is going to help out there for sure.
Yeah. And then last on my list, I have another tie, the old man quarterback. So I have Tom Brady and Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, Tom Brady is not a sleeper as far as in any means of the word of what a sleeper usually means. I just think that even though he's on this stacked team with Mike Evans and Gronk and Chris Godwin and Ronald Jones and, oh my gosh, O.J. Howard and all those people. And then they brought Leonard Fournette in and Bruce Arians as their coach. And people are still doubting Tom Brady can win a Super Bowl. With this team, with this roster, with this coach, you could probably put me at quarterback, and I'd probably lead us to 3 victories at least. And I haven't played a snap of quarterback in my life outside of the backyard. So I think people are sleeping on him because I don't know. I guess maybe they're used to him winning so much. I think a lot of people think that he's just a system QB. I think this will be an interesting year, and we'll find out how much truth is in that. Was it Bill or was it Tom that made that dynasty a dynasty? Was it a little bit of both? All I know is I've seen a few documentaries on Tom and how hard he studies and how hard he works. And I know he's bringing that intensity to Tampa. So you can only see the same defense so many times before your Rain Man when you come up to the line of scrimmage. It just happens when you've been in the league 20 years, you know. So I think he's just definitely being slept on. Like to automatically not assume that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a shot to be in the Super Bowl this year is just, to me, is insane. Like that they're my NFC Super Bowl pick. I mean, I like the Seahawks for sure, but Tom Brady with this team, it's got to be a Super Bowl. He's too smart. Anyway,
I think it's Super Bowl or bust for him. I
yeah,
think he's got something to prove.
exactly. And then my tie with Tom Brady would be Ryan Tannehill. He's up there in years, not as old as Tom by any means, but you know he's on the downhill slide. But I still think he's being slept on because of his numbers last year. They didn't look great, but people don't follow the Titans a lot, so they didn't know that he didn't actually, like, he started week 6, but it was a losing game. He didn't really get rolling until like what 7, 8, something like that, somewhere around in there. And then from there, he was leading the league in categories from that point forward. Not from obviously the start of the season because he didn't play in the start of the season.
Right.
So because he didn't make as big of a splash, and when Derrick Henry is your running back and he's the NFL's leading rusher, you tend to get snuffed out in the spotlight a little bit. So I think people are sleeping on him and the A.J. Brown connection. I think Corey Davis is going to have a breakout year. He's been a little bit underwhelming since he's gotten drafted, but I think this is his contract year, so I think he's going to ball out, make a very good duo for Tannehill to throw to, and of course Derrick Henry supporting the load. So,
To add to what you said about Tannehill, and I'm not a big Tannehill guy. I like him. He's good, and like you said, with Henry being the running back, Henry's going to get. He's a workhorse. That's what they brought him in there for. That's why he's there, to be their workhorse. And Tannehill is not going to blow the roof off with numbers, but he's very efficient at what he does.
yeah, exactly.
He doesn't turn it over a lot. He's a guy that, if need be, he can pull it down and get you 10 yards on the ground at any time. And like I said, I'm not a big Tannehill guy. You know that, but he just wins, or he did last year anyway.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he gets it done like at the time he needs to get it done. He doesn't, like I said, he's not going to blow the roof off and get you 400 or 500 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. He's not that guy, but he's a guy that can come in and not lose it for you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so you want to go on to our top 5s for the positions this year?
I have a couple sleepers I want to mention.
Yeah, sure.
One, it's again, he's a name that everybody knows. So I don't know if you can call him a sleeper, but he's a guy I think has got a lot to prove this year, and I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to do really good, and that's Cam Newton in New England with Bill and their offense coordinator. I went blank, forgot his name, but
Absolutely.
I think he's there. He's going to do good there. like I said, I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. And another guy is a rookie and a Joe Burrow teammate. Actually, I have two Joe Burrow teammates that I want to mention. Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, with Diggs being gone and Thielen going to be getting so much attention. I think that Jefferson will. I think he'll do very well there, even as a rookie. And Zimmer's not really known for throwing his rookies out early,
No,
but I think he will definitely work his way into being a very reliable target for Cousins.
that's a.
And go ahead.
I said that's a very good point.
Um, and the other one is a running back from LSU, Clyde Edwards-Hilaire,
Mhm.
with Williams opting out for the season and another one of their running backs being hurt. It kind of thrust him into being the guy for them. And in Big Red's offense, Andy Reid, Doctor Robotnik, he I think he's a good fit for them because he's a great catcher out of the backfield, and they like to utilize their running backs out of the backfield a lot. And they got some quirky plays that they always run. And with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, it's kind of hard not to succeed.
Yeah, for sure.
But
All right, so we'll go on to the next section, which is we're given not in any particular order our top five quarterbacks, top five running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. Flexes, as you know, are running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends. If you have a super flex, that's also a quarterback. So we're not gonna we'd be repeating essentially these lists if we added flexes. So we just kept it simple to QB, running back, tight ends, and wide receivers. Um, so I'll go up first with my quarterbacks, and then Drew, you can go. So with actually, if you wouldn't mind, you just go ahead and start off with the quarterbacks.
all right, my quarterbacks are Patrick Mahomes. I like Patrick Mahomes. I like Lamar Jackson. I like
Okay.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
I like Russell Wilson. And an older guy, I like Drew Brees. He's very consistent every year, as you can see by his career stats.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, my list, and that's in no particular order, but kind of the top two are my are kind of in order, but the rest is kind of just guys that I like myself. So
All right, cool. So who I have down as my top five, um, sorry, I got a little bit of an issue happening. Okay, so my quarterbacks for my top five, so I think Kyler Murray is going to impress a lot of people this year with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. Um, he's gonna turn a lot of heads. He did really good work last year, and he's smart. So he's got another year under his belt. Patrick Mahomes comes from the same type of background, even though they're built differently. They're both like just highly hyper athletic, highly intelligent people. So I mean, Lamar Jackson won his MVP really quickly too. I mean, it's these quarterbacks are evolving, man, to a point where it's a you know you don't know what to expect from him. He's not going to be my MVP pick this year. He's coming up next, but Kyler Murray is definitely on my top five list of breakout player or whatever. Russell Wilson, that is going to be my pick for this league's MVP this year, for sure, 100%. And he's I can't express what this man has done for this team since he's been drafted. He's had good defenses for a lot of his career, but he's had a lot of bad offenses. 100% bad offenses for sure. And he's turned shit into gold, running around being chased for his life. But now his offense is starting to tighten back up. He's got some decent receivers with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He's got a great running game. His offensive line is getting a little tighter. And then they added Greg Olsen as a tight end. And I mean, who doesn't love to throw to Greg Olsen? I mean, he's the ultimate security blanket outside of Jason Witten. So Russell Wilson definitely on that list. And then the obvious two, Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I don't want to say what's already been said, but I mean, they're freak athletes, freaks in nature. One can throw the ball 1,000,000 miles. The other one can run 1,000,000 miles a second and also throw the ball for 500 yards a game. We thought he couldn't throw. He could throw. We knew he can run. We didn't know he can run that good. So, I mean, there's just not enough good things you can say about those two guys. And then Aaron Rodgers, I think he's on point for a bounce back season. And what I mean by bounce back, Aaron Rodgers has been held to a standard for years that he has not met the past 3 years. And what I mean bounce back, I think he's got the personnel around him now, and the personnel has been playing long enough around him and in this offense that I think we're going to be seeing close, not exactly Super Bowl Aaron Rodgers form, but we're going to see close to Super Bowl Aaron Rodgers form now. His connection with his targets, he's got a good running game. His defense has been built up. Matt LaFleur is a very offensive-minded coach. Aaron Rodgers is going to do damage this year. I can guarantee almost.
Yeah, this is the first time in a long time. Well, last year, the first time in a long time he's actually had a running game.
Yeah.
It's always been Aaron's got to do it all for us.
For sure. And when you take that pressure off of quarterbacks, you see that they elevate even further. Sometimes there's some that put it all on their backs, and they don't care. They'll take you to the promised land. But it's always easy, especially when you're Aaron Rodgers' age and you've had broken collarbones and things like that. It's good to have something to lean on, quote unquote. Like a really good running game. So next up, we got some running backs. So I'll start off. I have Dalvin Cook. Yes, again, I am a Florida State fan, but he's also a very fantastic running back. You cannot deny that. The man is transcendent for sure. 100% transcendent. He's a fantastic pass catcher. He's a fantastic runner. He can cut on a dime. He can power you over. He's got it all. He's the ultimate package in my opinion. Then I have Christian McCaffrey. Again, no particular order. I do not want to get into a debate between who's better between Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. CMC is so versatile, it is insane. I did not think that he was going to hold up the way that he has held up. I will be the first to admit I thought he had great talent, great potential, but I thought he was going to get beat to shreds in the NFL. But that man has found a way to stay strong and to stay relevant and to constantly be open and be where he needs to be. He is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I also have Derrick Henry, Titans fan, but that's irrelevant because the man's a bowling ball. He is a workhorse. I I've seen him train this year, not in person, but his videos that everybody's seen. The dude is a tank. He is to say he's a workhorse is an understatement and a travesty. This dude is a tank. Uh, Anytime he touches the ball, he just leans forward and gets 5 yards. Um, incredible specimen. Then you got to go with AK-41. Alvin Kamara, one of the most dangerous men in the league, either passing or catching. You can line him up in the slot, you can line him up in the backfield. It doesn't matter because you're not going to touch him either way. So he's definitely one of those great ones to pick up in a PPR league for sure. And that's why he's on my top 5 list. And then we're gonna finish it off with good old Saquon Barkley, redwood tree trunk leg size. The man is insane. Sorry, Drew. I know you're a Cowboys fan, but you're gonna have to deal with that for a very long time. Just like they're gonna have to deal with Zeke for a very long time. I look forward to their battles. I look forward to their rivalries. Saquon's the man. He can catch. His hands are smooth. He's got great cuts. He's got great just raw just raw instinct as the word I was looking for. So yeah, just fantastic player. So who's your 5 running backs?
Well, I started off with Christian McCaffrey, and I know you talked a lot about him. It's just, man, it's insane the athlete that he is. Like I was in the same boat as you. I didn't think that he would come in and make this kind of impact as early as he has.
Yeah.
But um, he's true to his last name.
Yeah, for sure.
His
100.
dad was a great receiver for Denver for a lot of years. Um, and he's got a little brother coming up too, so I'm anxious to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Um, I have Zeke. A lot of people forget, they think about him running and hurdling everybody, but a lot of people forget he catches the ball quite a bit out of the backfield. And I think this year in McCarthy's offense, I think he'll do that, which is still Kellen Moore, but it's a McCarthy swing to it.
Yeah.
I think he'll do that even more this year, and they've even hinted at that in press conferences. And I mean, even last year he had, I think, mid 50 catches, and then the year before that, I know he had close to 80 catches. So I mean, he does catch the ball a lot out of the backfield, and everybody knows what he does on the ground. So um, next, I have a guy that you mentioned watching him for a lot of years. I have Saquon. Can't say enough about him. He came in immediately and was, I mean, kind of like Zeke did. Came in and was a beast like first year, and he's done it since. Um, when he gets going, it's with the ball in his hands. It's hard to stop him, whether he's running or he caught it. When
Yeah.
he's in open field, it's almost unstoppable. Then I have uh, Kamara with the Saints. He's another guy I like. He just another one that's very explosive, no matter what he's doing. And to be his size, he runs bigger than he is. Very hard to take down. Um, Catches the ball a lot in screenplays with Drew Brees. It's another guy I really like. And then of course I have Derrick Henry. Um, I think before this year or before this past season, I don't think he got the credit. I think a lot of people kind of wrote him off, like that he wasn't going to be the Derrick Henry that he was at Alabama, and I think that's because he wasn't given the opportunity to be that Derrick Henry until this past season.
Yeah.
It was like they drafted him pretty high, and even though they drafted him high, it's like they kept bringing somebody in to like split with him or be the guy to take over. And I'll give him credit. He a lot of guys in that situation would have wanted out or asked for a trade or whatever, and he did it the right way, kept his mouth shut, kept his head down, and you seen last year it paid off for him. So I give him credit on that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So on to tight ends. Position I'm struggling in right now. So I have top 5 tight ends going to be this year. Obviously, if Tom Brady's playing and Gronk's playing and they're on the field at the same time, Gronk's going to be in my top 5 always. Because Gronk always finds a way to show up when Gronk needs to show up. Granted, he'll be hurt probably half the year. He deserves to be. The man has taken a lot of hits. He's done a lot of crazy stuff on the field. He has put his body on the line. So if they have enough talent on that roster that he only has to suit up 6 times a year, and they'll still be okay because they got O.J. Howard waiting in the wings. But he's still going to do Gronk things. I'm not saying he's going to get 1,500 yards, 1,200 yards. He might not even get 1,000 yards. But Gronk, you will see, Gronk is going to be back for sure. He's going to be back 100%. And then, so I have David Njoku. I had him on there. I'm going to switch that to Austin Hooper. I like Njoku, and I thought Baker did. But it seems like he's just got a little bit better chemistry with Austin Hooper. I love David Njoku as a player, but Austin Hooper, he learned a lot playing with Matty Ice. He learned how to be a tight end because Matty Ice played with Tony Gonzalez. And I think a little bit of that trickled down, and Austin Hooper has a little bit more veteran experience that you can only get in rare situations, like playing with a guy that played with a Hall of Famer at your same position. Mark Andrews, somebody that rarely gets mentioned outside of like really serious fantasy circles. I feel like he is definitely an important tight end to watch this year. He is a solid. If you want to talk about security blanket, this guy is there for you. I personally had him last year. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know who he was last year until he had a couple of good games, and my tight end got hurt, and I was struggling, and he was sitting on the waivers, and I was like, you know what? Okay, let's try it out. And best decision I ever made. He's great tight end. And then to round off, the bottom 2 are the obvious 2, Kittle and Kelsey, monsters of their position. It is sickening to see that how this position has evolved to be wide receiver-esque, and then these 2 take it up a notch even higher than that. Like they literally could just be wide receivers, but they're good enough blockers and they have a big enough body. Let's put them on the line. They could play X and Y's like no problem. They could. I mean, they're insane. I'm not going to rant on them because I know they're probably on your list too. So I'll let you talk about them. But those are my tight ends. So.
Yeah, I definitely have Kittle and Kelsey. Like you said, they're just it's when it comes to tight ends, this is those 2 and then everybody else. And it used to be Witten and Tony Gonzalez, and of course those guys got older and Gonzalez retired, and Witten's still going. He retired once, but he came back. Now he's in Vegas, which is so weird for me. I never thought he would be playing in any other jersey.
That is weird.
But seems like a lot of, not to get off topic, but seems like a lot of Cowboys players went out there this year. A lot of the guys we didn't sign kind of um, followed it. A couple coaches went out there, and I think they just kind of followed them. But Travis Kelce. I mean, it's pretty obvious. The guy's just a monster.
Yeah.
Uh, I also had Andrews on my list, and
Oh, cool.
he man, he just showed up. Like, he came out of nowhere and showed up, and he showed up every week. And it was kind of
Exactly.
cool. Like you said, when you picked him up last year, it was just even I was like, what? Like, who is this guy? And then I got to looking at his stats, and it was like, man, this guy's like, he is really balling. Another guy I had Zach Ertz from
Yeah.
Philly.
Okay.
Uh, no matter who's the quarterback,
The quarterback is, yeah.
even when Wentz is hurt, like he does every year, Ertz always shows up. And of course, like you said, you got to have Gronk on the list. Anytime him and Brady are on the same team, you got to have that. And that's my five. I do want to add one though
Sure.
that
It's your show.
that I think he was kind of in. We talked about Andrews. He was kind of in Andrews' shadow a little bit, and now with Hooper leaving Atlanta, soon as Hooper left Atlanta, Atlanta wasted no time in trading for this guy, and I think he's gonna be a pretty good tight end for him, and that's Hayden Hurst. He was kind of in Andrews' shadow last year, but
Yep.
I think he's gonna be big time for Atlanta and Matt Ryan, and with them having Julio and Calvin Ridley and now Gurley. I mean, there's a lot of names that people have to worry about, and I think Hayden Hurst will benefit from that.
Yep. I 100% agree. I unfortunately I got on the Hayden Hurst train too early. Then he ran through that string of injuries his rookie year in the Ravens, and he couldn't get going. And then that's when Mike Andrews got going. Honestly, I think it was just a race of they had two good tight ends on their team. It's just who got on the field more quicker, and that's who was going to win the job. And unfortunately, Hayden Hurst had that foot problem and stuff, and he wasn't able to showcase what he could do. But I drafted him. Like I I I drafted a rookie tight end. That like it never happens in my to me. Um, that's how much faith I had. I thought I had another Travis Kelce in the wings. I still think he has the potential to be one of those type of tight ends, though. It just didn't work out for him last year, unfortunately. So on to wide receivers now. So I got Julio, obviously. As long as he's suiting up, the man's going to be at the top of the pack. Tyreek Hill, as long as Patrick Mahomes is slinging them balls, Tyreek Hill is going to be 80 yards downfield to catch him. OBJ, OBJ is he's going to be making a comeback this year. Saw something really interesting on Pro Fantasy Football Focus. Shout out to them. They have the Browns among three other teams as the top as far as strength of schedule, wide receivers versus pass defenses. They have the Browns part of the top four teams that are going to have the most success, from what they say. Because of that, I trust PFF. I also trust my gut, and I think OBJ and Baker Mayfield have a lot to prove, and they want to prove. And the fact that their strength of schedule matches up as well, I think it's a recipe for disaster for the people playing against them. I think OBJ is going to be one of the top five tight ends this or wide receivers this year. Obviously, Michael Thomas, the human catch machine. He or will he not break his record last year? That's the question I have. He's on my list for sure. And then a little sneaker, a tie between the Browns, AJ from the Titans and Hollywood from the Ravens. I think they're going to show off and show out a lot more than they did last year for sure. I have a lot of excitement about these two gentlemen. So Drew, who you got for your wide receivers?
I'm going to start off with a teammate of a guy you touched on earlier when we were talking about quarterbacks. You said Aaron Rodgers is going to have a bounce back year, and I think someone that will most definitely benefit from that is one of the best route runners in the NFL, Devontae Adams. Um, he's his footwork is amazing, um,
Okay.
and I've always really liked him, and he shows up. So I got him on my list. Another one is DeAndre Hopkins. Um, he's a big name, but I think him and Kyler Murray will. I think they will really do some good this year out there in Arizona, and of course Michael Thomas. I mean, Drew Brees is his quarterback,
Yeah.
and he broke the record last year and almost had 2,000 yards. I mean, it's speaks for itself. Um,
And just to reiterate, just because I agree, like with Adams and um, who was the other one that you said that I didn't say? Uh,
Hopkins.
yeah, I just because they didn't make my top five, I mean, it's just you got to understand, guys. There's so many good wide receivers in the NFL today. It's hard to pick five. So I'm just I'm just you literally throw a dartboard at and hit five good wide receivers. So just because they're not in my top five doesn't mean I wouldn't put them in there in a heartbeat if I had a chance. I definitely would for sure. So just to reiterate on that. Sorry to interrupt, Drew.
Oh, you're good. And definitely Julio.
Yeah.
I mean, he's year in and year out. He's a good receiver every year. Um, and I like Tyreek Hill. I mean, what's not to like? I mean, the guy can catch a 5 yard slant and be 80 yards down the field, and before you know what happened. So,
Yeah.
and it helps when Patrick Mahomes is throwing it to you. Um,
What's not to love?
and yeah, that's my five.
All right, so we'll go on to the next topic. So, with the obvious coronavirus swindling around the NFL season, how do you think it'll affect it? Do you think
Um,
we'll see more players out? We'll join this together and make it as if it was part of because it's going to be considered part of like an injury lineup, like who's sick, who's injured, like kind of thing. So, do you how will this affect the amount of players being out in general, whether it be injury or sickness? Do you see the number going up, down? What's up?
I don't think it will be up. I think the NFL has done pretty good. Like they do a lot of testing, and it's like it's well, from what I've been seeing, a lot of the teams are kind of creating their own bubble. They kind of followed the NBA prototype and kind of created their own bubble for their training camp. Like their players are staying at their facilities, and like like I know the Cowboys, for instance. I of course I keep up with them, but their facility actually has a hotel built into the practice facility. They have a whole business center there. Um, so all the players, I mean, they have the option, which I mean is I guess is good and bad, but um, most of the team is staying at the hotel. which I think is good. It keeps it down, like, far as being in contact with a lot of people. And I read something earlier on a news break that said, um, I don't remember the exact numbers, but they had, out of so many thousands of tests, out of the players and personnel in the NFL, out of, I think it was like, out of the month of August, they had one positive out of those tests. So they're doing something right, whatever they're doing. Um, and then it was in a certain timeline, and which they may have had some different positive tests since then, but that's just what I read at that time. Um, but yeah, like I said, I don't think it's gonna be that big of an issue.
Okay, yeah, that you made a lot of interesting points, a lot of good points. Also, some of they're also doing things with the fans and stuff like that, as far as limiting the amount and all that stuff. So, um, I definitely can agree with that. I don't necessarily being a drastic increase because they are going to be able to. They have the means and the opportunity to isolate themselves like the NBA players do. Um, as far as the MVP for the year for you, who do you got winning your who? So I guess I should say this a different way. Um, who's the most important player on your team, on your metaphorical team? That is either if they have a great day, you win no matter what. If they have a bad day, your team's losing no matter how good the rest of your team does.
Are you
Uh,
are
and
we
we'll do
speaking as
we'll
in
do
fantasy, or are we speaking as in
in fantasy. In fantasy,
fantasy?
we're gonna do PPR scoring and standard scoring mindsets.
And you're meaning on my personal team, or
Just
just
your
in general?
metaphorical. Yeah, who would be your MVP if you had to pick it?
Oh, my MVP.
Like the person you would pick that you knew that once you had him on your team, if he has a good game, you're winning no matter what. If he has a bad game, it's going to be tough for the rest of your team to pull through.
Uh, I mean, it may be a kind of an obvious choice, but I mean, uh, Christian McCaffrey. If that guy performs, then he is. I mean, he's
That
either a 30-point guy or 40-point guy, or if he doesn't get that, then you know, if you were lucky enough to get him, then you probably weren't lucky enough to get some of the other great guys. So I think that for me that would be the guy.
I agree. That's exactly who I picked was Christian McCaffrey. Just for the and so let's do a. I'll choose a different one then for the sake of just switching it up. But let me think about it first. So go ahead and do your standard. Who would you pick
Standard.
if you were in a standard scoring league?
Man, that's a well, like we talked about earlier, which may be a little unorthodox for some, but when we were talking about standard, quarterbacks usually dominate in points. So maybe Patrick Mahomes, if he does, for some reason he has a bad game, and you're relying on him, and you picked a lot of Chiefs players, then
Mm-hmm.
like you got lucky and got Tyreek, or you got Travis Kelsey, and Mahomes goes out and just bombs, which very rarely happens. But if it happens, that could put you potentially in a very bad spot.
Yeah. I agree. So my pick for standard, I actually Mahomes' teammate. I picked Tyreek just because he's always a threat to touch the ball every single time. So if he has a good game, his good game is he's had 3 touchdowns, like 200 yards, and 8 receptions, or receptions don't matter in standard scoring. But since you brought up quarterback and you made a good point, I made this list a couple of days ago. But since hearing you today bring up the topic about the quarterback, and you made very interesting points that kind of swayed my opinion and kind of got me thinking a different way. I would even venture to say probably more important than Tyreek Hill. I'll go with quarterback and say Lamar Jackson, just because he brings the dual threat ability. He's got an arm. He can score a lot of touchdowns with Mike Andrews, with Hollywood Brown. But he can also run a lot. So congratulations, you convinced me. I think I'm going to change my pick to a quarterback, as far as the importance. So
And
and
to add to what you're saying about Lamar, like you said, he brings so much to the table. He might have 330 yards passing and 120 yards rushing, and that's you're looking at 450 yards of total offense in one player
yeah,
out of the whole 11 on offense. You know what I'm saying? That was a great pick.
yeah. Well, thank you. You inspired it. So for PPR, I was gonna say Christian McCaffrey. But since we agreed, I want to make it a little bit more exciting. I want to just agree with you. So the person that would win my league, hands down, if I had him on my team, I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Kittle, either Kittle or Kelsey. And the reason why is because if these guys, because they're capable of getting 25 and 30 points, 35, 40 points a game. I've seen them do it. When your tight end is scoring that amount, oh man, it's over. It's over. So I would venture to say that they could be MVPs on your team. They could make or break your team for sure. I wanted to go Michael Thomas and do the obvious choice, but nah. Why do that when you can mix it up a little bit? But yeah, I would say, if you have a good opportunity like in the 5th round or early in the 4th to snag a Kittle or a Kelsey, go for it, because if you get them there and then you can build around them somehow, if you can get back on track and build around them, it's gonna be a scary thing when the opponent that's playing you sees 30, 25, and 30 points from your tight end spot, and his is projected at 12 or 15. It's a very overwhelming feeling for sure. So our final question, I guess, or segment or whatever that we're going to do today before we sign off, who we think will be the biggest shocking bust. Not just bust as far as like draft bust, or who's going to be just a regular bust, but like who is normally at the top of the world, who is going to nosedive off of that thing and land flat on their face this year. I'll go first.
All right, go ahead.
I picked, and don't hate me, everybody, because I love the man, Drew Brees. I think he's given me no reason to say so. He hasn't at all. But Father Time does catch up to us all. And I think eventually it will catch up with him as well. And I think this will be the year to do it. He does have a very good wide receiver and running back to rely upon, but I just think it's going to be like when we thought Peyton Manning was done. Like he just wasn't making the throws that he needed to make. Drew's never had a real powerful arm to begin with. Where he's been great is his accuracy, and when you still to be accurate, you still have to have a decent amount of torque and force going out so you can get that accurate fitted in that window. And I think we're going to start to see him struggle. And I think we're going to see Jameis get and this is not a play on Florida State, even though Jameis just so happens to be the backup quarterback. But I think they got him to be the backup quarterback because they see the same thing coming that I'm telling you that probably will come. Drew's probably going to have a slip up. He's going to show his age. Um, and they're going to try Jameis out, and they're going to see how Jameis can get up with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, because Jameis can inspire. He can light a fire under people. Jameis can throw the ball too, deep. He's a powerful thrower. He's also more mobile than Drew Brees is. I mean, we saw what Teddy Bridgewater did coming in, and I feel like personally, Jameis Winston is a better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater. He's a more careless quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater by all means, but he's a better quarterback. He's going to throw you for more yards and more touchdowns, but he'll also he's a gunslinger true and true. And when you get a gunslinger like Philip Rivers or Brett Favre, what comes with high touchdowns comes high interceptions. So I think we're going to see the slip of Drew Brees, and we're going to see the phoenix rising from the ashes that is Jameis Winston. So
for me, it's another quarterback. A lot of people like him, and he definitely has some weapons to throw to, and I still think that at least one of them, maybe two, will get their numbers. But for me, it's Matt Ryan. He's not. He's not really. He's a he's a really good quarterback, but he just always seems to find a way to let you down.
yeah.
Um, it's just a guy that I mean, and that doesn't mean I don't like him. I do like him, and I've even had him on my fantasy teams,
Mm-hmm.
and I've also cut him from my fantasy teams for the reasons that I'm saying he's for me he's not consistent enough. Like
Yeah.
he might go out there and throw for 400 or 500 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns this game, and then the next game he might throw 4 interceptions. He's just not a guy that I pursue. I mean, if he's my only option between him and maybe a Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold or somebody like, yeah, of course I'm gonna take Matt Ryan because of who he has on his team. But
Yeah.
he's just not a guy that I've got to have, and I just don't think he's consistent enough for me, anyways.
Well, that's a very good pick. I agree. I definitely do see the decline of Matt Ryan coming sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, I don't see a succession plan in place quick enough to not waste Julio's years that he has left. I think they're doing a good job in it in New Orleans because they got Jameis and they had Teddy before that. So they had someone that could go with right away that's already had veteran leadership, veteran knowledge. So two very good points, two teams handling it completely different ways. So do you have something else to add?
Uh, not really something to do with fantasy, just kind of a little, not, I guess it's a fact, but a little something fun for you Madden guys. Colin Kaepernick is returning to Madden today.
Oh, cool.
They're putting him back in. I just actually it just popped up on my phone, so it's kind of a breaking news, so to speak.
There you go, Drew Schefter. What I
That
tell you guys, what I tell you. The
is
man on the spot with the knowledge. Thank you, Drew. Good information. Right at the bell too.
and
Um,
we won't get into Madden because that's a whole nother show.
yeah. It's a little broken. There's some bug fixes hopefully planned for the future, but as a diehard Madden and a diehard story mode and a diehard everything Madden's ever done fan, it's been really hard holding on. But I'm doing it. But yeah, that is a different episode. That's a different talk for a different episode. But for now, those were our tips, our tricks on drafting for the standard PPR. Also, a few things on our opinions on the sleepers, the overraters, the busts, the great busts, the MVPs of your leagues in fantasy, and then who we also think are the top five fantasy players in the skill position and the quarterback position on your teams this year. People you should be targeting highly. And so that's a wrap for us. Episode 1. Technically episode 2, since we had some difficulties, so we shot the draft first and we did this show second. So technically episode 2, but it's going to be aired as episode 1. Thank you guys for joining in. If you had any disagreements, you thought we missed somebody, want us to add somebody, got any ideas for any new segments, upcoming segments. We have a lot in the bag. I don't want to release too much knowledge and let you know what's in store, but we got some stuff up our sleeves. But if there's anything you'd like us to do on a week-to-week basis to help you plan better for your fantasy lineup for that coming week, let us know for sure. We're here for you guys. We're here to tailor to you to help you win. We're not here just to hear ourselves talk, even though it is fun. But we pride ourselves on our logic and our common sense in the way that we're able to predict and to read things, and the sources that we go to get the information from. We trust it, and we trust our process. So, and we want to just pass it on to other people who may not know how to play. But we're definitely not perfect, so we're always open for more suggestions. So if anything strikes you, let us know in the comments. Give us a like, give us a share, spread the word. That's the only way we're gonna reach other people is with your help. So share the love, and we appreciate you tuning in. Anything else you got to add?
Really enjoyed it. This is personally my first episode of doing a podcast, and just glad to be a part of it. First,
Awesome. Yeah, man. It's been great. Look forward to many future episodes with you. And as always, like we will say, come with us if you want to win. Peace.